Hello, we're Group 6, and for our topic, we decided to go over cybersecurity in the business field. My name is Russell Rickards.
And my name is Michelle.
My name is Lina Kang.
Jacob Cervantes.
I'm Johnny Truong.
And I'm Luis Lua.
So, for our presentation, we decided to split it up into 6 topics, and we're going to go over cloud security's best practices for businesses, the human factor, cybersecurity compliance, incident response planning, risk assessment and management, and finally, emerging threats.
So I will present for the cloud security, the best practice for business. So with technology, we know that online shopping is very, very common. And then the people, they don't need to go to in person, or they don't need to go to the destination to buy a product. And then the people, they can buy anything and shop around the world with a hassle-free experience. So as an owner, how can we protect our business from the cyber attack? So actually, what is the cyber attacks? In brief, the cyber attacks is the unwelcome attack that the hacker, they attempt and try to steal or alter or damage the information by access to the computer system with an unauthorized choice. So the cyber attack on the business, they can cause the business to be damaged, and then also disrupt the business, and then the owner will be losing the money. So the solution is that cloud security can help to prevent that. So what is the cloud security? So cloud security is a protocol, and is the best practice to protect the cloud computer environment. And also the cloud security help organization in the business to achieve the lower upfront costs and reduce those ongoing operation and those administration fees costs. But so the problem is that why is cloud security best for the business practice? In here, I list for 3 bullet points. So the first one is that it helps to keep the cloud environment safe and secure access. So different from the past, with the advent of cloud security and its faster connection, on side of the business can be easily to access the data, the tool, and the service. So the business owner, they also have to be responsible for the user account and those sensitive data for their organization. So with the password management and multiple factor authentication to help the business organization to identify the user behind. The second point is that it is best for the practice for the business because it is efficiency response to security incident. So when the cyber incident happens, the cloud securities, they will have a faster response to limit the extent of the damage. However, this one, they will require the organization has to have a developed and solid recovery plan in case of they losing the data as a backup for themselves. So picking the right technology and the cloud provider, they can help reduce those business, the massive risk and the damage. So cloud security is a shortcut acting as solution, not only preserving the data, but also keep the business safe. The third point is that for cloud security, they will help business to have a team to educate the employee to against the phishing. So allow for the security to access to the business. So the organization, they can monitor the user activity to minimize the influence of the human factor inside of themselves organization. And also this one, for the cloud security, they will protect the cloud infrastructure and help the owner rise the personal cybersecurity awareness, especially on phishing. So we're using the cloud security organization. They can educate the employee those signs and those signal of phishing and practice how to avoid disclosing those sensitive information to the public.
Considering cybersecurity risk, a human factor is one of the biggest reasons for data breaches. According to Verizon's 2022 DBIR, 82% of data breaches involve a human element, including phishing and the use of stolen credentials. Humans are often the weakest link in the security chain because they can be vulnerable to social engineering attacks such as phishing or pretexting, which exploit human emotions and behaviors to gain access to sensitive information. Some of the most common examples of human involvement in any cybersecurity risks are poor password hygiene, human error, insider threats, and by bringing your own device. With poor password hygiene, there are two kinds, which are weak passwords and old passwords. Weak passwords mean passwords that are easily guessable, such as your birthday or your best friend's name, or some kind of information that is related to you, which the hacker can get from your social media and use it as a potential guess. For old passwords, the older the password, the more time the hacker has to be able to crack it and leave you unnotified of the potential password breach. And if they were able to retrieve your old password from another system or another website, it can be a viable guess for your other systems as well if you have not changed it over that time. With human error, that involves social engineering, such as a phishing call, also known as voice solicitation, where you use a phone call to extract sensitive information that can be used in an attack. With insider threats, current employees who are unaware of potential cybersecurity attacks can potentially misuse their access authorization and leave it vulnerable for hackers to gain access to. And lastly, by bringing your own device, employees may not have their devices up to the level of security that the company may require, and perhaps leave loopholes for hackers to gain access to. Thus, to mitigate these risks, the best option is to employ a dedicated cybersecurity training program. And there are 4 ways to go about this, which are to develop cybersecurity training program for employees, enforce strong security protocols such as strong password policies, regularly review and update security protocols, and by promoting a culture of cybersecurity. Regarding the cybersecurity training program, some of the things we can do is to conduct regular phishing simulations. And phishing simulations are an effective way to test employees' awareness and readiness to identify and report phishing attacks. The simulation can be conducted through email or other means, and employees who fall for the simulation should be provided with additional training. And in addition, it is important to cover topics such as password security, email scams, and malware protection, and safe browsing within the program. Regarding enforcing strong security protocols, such as strong password policies, regarding passwords, password is the front door to access to any system, and it is necessary to keep it protected and private always. 3 ways you can do this is either making a strong password, changing the password frequently, and using multi-factor authentication. And by regularly reviewing and updating security protocols, threats are constantly evolving over time, especially with our constantly growing digital era, and it is important to keep the security system up to date as much as possible. And lastly, it's important to promote a culture of cybersecurity within the company community, because everyone in the organization, from top level executives to entry level employees, should be aware of the importance of cybersecurity and should take responsibility for ensuring that the organization systems and data are secure. And this can be achieved through regular communication, employee engagement, and recognition programs.
So the technological advancement that we know as the internet is relatively new. Speaking like it's only a few decades old, and with this, this is where the scope of cybersecurity has come into question. There's been lots of strides. It's only been 30 years, but they've really had to push for overarching regulations and making sure companies comply to these cybersecurity regulations so that they are safe for the general public. Common regulations are the HIPPA, the PCI DSS, the GOBA, and the GDPR. And the reason I'm only outlining these ones is because they are very general and they can encompass almost nearly any type of business that you could think of. I mean, the HIPPA applies to healthcare providers and insurance companies, anything that handles patient records, health information of customers. This is extremely important information that you wouldn't want to get leaked. PCI DSS applies to companies that process any kind of credit card payments. This is extremely important. The GLBA is an interesting one because this applies to financial institutions, banks, and investment firms, which are, again, on the same tier of importance as a credit card payment, companies that handle credit card payments. I mean, but this is more severe. It has very deep credentials on what you have in your financial institutions and banks that you would not want to get leaked. And then the GDPR is the most interesting one in terms of eye-opener of how important cybersecurity is, due to the fact that it applies to businesses that handle personal data of EU residents. That means the EU government imposes this internationally. They impose it to companies that aren't based in the EU, like say in the United States, that have data of EU residents. And it just goes to show how companies really value and take seriously the topic of cybersecurity. And it just cannot be overstated. With the emergence of the internet and this new technological advancement, companies can now store private data on their networks, their network servers that are encrypted, have firewalls and all this stuff to still be safe. But the fact alone that it's connected to the internet means that, companies can access this and be far more efficient and have and reach a lot more customers and be a lot more accommodating to customers. But this makes it accessible for hackers to not easily, but potentially gain access to these private datas on these networks. So yeah, hackers are a constant threat to businesses, and that's why the government is really has their hand in the cookie jar for these companies and their cybersecurity protocols.
Okay, so when it comes to the incident response planning, or IPR, for cybersecurity breaches, it actually takes around 197 days to detect when a breach happens. And after those 197 days, it takes another 69 days to contain that breach. And what that means is just make sure that everything that was lost is recovered. So there are a ton of cybersecurity companies out there that a lot of people are familiar with. So just to list a few, there's McAfee, Duo Security, CrowdStrike. All of these companies, they actually only employ a 4-step process to prevent cybersecurity breaches. So those 4 steps, first we would have to go through constraint and recovery. So the constraint and recovery mainly deals with the procedures as to what to do when the breach occurs. So we find out who is involved and the stakeholders, or who's going to be affected by the breach. We then move on to the second stage, which is the investigation. And investigation mainly involves analyzing system logs, trying to see who did what, when they did it. We also interview employees, ask them questions on why they were doing the certain things that they logged. And if we need to, we can continue with forensic analysis. Third, we go into the notification stage, and that's pretty much just notifying any of the affected parties. So we have to be very transparent with any of the customers that were involved. We have to tell them what happened to their assets, and just make sure that we are open with them and tell them what we're doing to recover everything for them. And the final step is remediation. And that's pretty much after the fact, after the breach is contained. We have to go through what we could do to prevent this certain type of breach from happening again, what we can implement into the system, and what updates we could do to any policies. And we could also implement training for any employees that need it, so that we could stop this breach from happening in the future. So I'm actually an intern for information security, and there are some tools that we use throughout the business, and I just wanted to list a few of them so that you guys can have an idea on what tools are actually used. So one of them is Tanium, and Tanium provides a powerful and flexible platform to secure endpoint devices and respond to cyber threats with real-time visibility and comprehensive controls. So we basically use Tanium to check on all of the machines that are running within our company. And we see that they're always checking in and making sure that they're all logging their data from day to day. We also use Sumo Logic, which is a cloud-based machine data analytics company focused on security, operations, and BI use cases. So for Sumo Logic, it actually generates daily reports that we could see and analyzed throughout the day just to make sure that everything is logged correctly. We could see who's logging in, how many failed attempts each person has. But we could also see if the firewall is being breached or if there's any edits that are being made to our systems. And finally, we use KnowBe4, which provides security awareness training to help you manage the IT security problems of social engineering, spear phishing, and ransomware attacks. So with KnowBe4, we're able to create phishing emails, which we could then send to employees throughout the bank. And we are trying to test if the employees are actually able to pick up on these phishing emails. We can create them specifically to target any employees that we want. And based on their responses, we could issue training to them just to make sure that they're always on their feet.
All right. The importance of cybersecurity risk assessment and management. There are numerous emerging threats in cybersecurity, and businesses must be proactive in staying ahead of these threats to ensure the safety and security of their systems and data. Here are some of the most significant emerging threats in cybersecurity and some tips on how businesses can stay ahead. First topic is ransomware attacks and the Internet of Things vulnerabilities. Second is cloud security threats and AI and machine learning attacks. And finally, staying up to date with cybersecurity trends and best practices. Ransomware attacks and the Internet of Things vulnerabilities. So as more devices become connected to the internet, the risk of cybersecurity attacks increases. So to kind of reduce these risks, some good practices to back up data regularly, update software and security protocols, train employees to recognize and avoid phishing emails, ensure all Internet of Things devices are secured, and use strong passwords. Cloud security threats and AI and machine learning attacks. So cloud computing is becoming more and more popular and is also presenting new security risks, and hackers can actually use machine learning and AIs to automate attacks. So to kind of avoid this from happening, or at least reduce the risk, is to implement strong access control, encrypt data and transit at rest, implement security measures that can detect both AI and machine learning threats, and use multi-factor authentication. And staying up to date with cybersecurity trends and best practices. Regularly review and update security policies and protocol, conduct regular vulnerability assessments and penetration testing, and finally invest in cybersecurity training for employees.
With that being said, I'm going to be talking about the emerging threats in cybersecurity and how businesses can stay ahead. So an AI generator content called deepfake is an artificial intelligence that can create realistic fake images, videos, or audio that are difficult to distinguish from real content. This could be used for disinformation campaigns, identity theft, or even fraud. Businesses should invest in AI-based detection tools and educate their employees about the risk associated with deepfakes. Cyber criminals can use deepfakes to impersonate individuals or create realistic fake identities for financial gain. They might create fraudulent videos or voice recordings to deceive others into revealing sensitive information and approving transactions or granting access to restricted areas or systems. So cloud security vulnerability, as more businesses start to rely on cloud computing, the need for robust cloud security measures becomes very critical. Organizations should carefully choose their cloud providers, implement strong access controls, and regularly review their cloud security policies. Weak authentications and authorization mechanisms can make it easier for attackers to compromise cloud accounts and access sensitive data. This includes the use of weak passwords, lack of multi-factor authentication, or insufficient role-based access controls. So for quantum computing threats, the development of the quantum computers could eventually render current encryption methods obsolete. Businesses should stay informed about quantum computing, be prepared to adopt new encryption standards as they become available. The primary quantum computing threat, cybersecurity, is the potential to break widely used cryptography algorithms, specifically like public cryptography, which underpins much of today's secure online communication, including like the secure webs browsing, the HTTPS, email encryptions, and secure financial transactions. So to stay ahead of these emerging threats, businesses should regularly assess and update their security infrastructure policies and practices. They should invest on ongoing employee training and educate on cybersecurity's best practices, collaborate with the industry peers and law enforcement to share info on threats and best practices, implement a robust incident response plan to minimize the impact of cyber attacks. And by staying proactive and vigilant, businesses can better protect themselves from emerging cyber threats and maintain a strong posture.
Cool. So thank you for listening to our presentation, and I hope that you understand the importance of cybersecurity in the business field and how to spot anything that could be seen as phishing and how to prevent any actions, to prevent any breaches that can happen in the future. And I just wanted to make sure that everybody to remember to secure your data, secure your future, and practice cybersecurity. Thank you.